My husband asked me for a divorce in the hospital parking garage 11 minutes after my oncologist told me I had cancer. I was still holding the pale blue folder they had given me at the front desk. My name was printed on a white label across the tab, neat and harmless, like it belonged to a tax return or a dental appointment instead of the thing that had just split my life in half. Inside were scans, blood work, surgical notes. A page with the word carcinoma typed in black ink like it had every right to be there. Dr. Whitaker had been gentle. That almost made it worse. She had pulled her chair close, put both hands around her coffee mug, and told me the tumor was small. She said we had found it early. She said there were options. Surgery first, maybe radiation depending on the margins, maybe medication after that. She said, "This is frightening, Nora, but it is not hopeless." I tried to hold on to that sentence. It is not hopeless. But Mark sat beside me tapping his thumb against his phone screen under the conference table. He did not touch me once. Not when Dr. Whitaker said the word malignant. Not when I stopped breathing for a second. Not when I asked if I was going to lose my breast, my hair, my future, my marriage, my life. He only looked up when she mentioned appointments. "How many weeks are we talking?" he asked. Dr. Whitaker blinked. "That depends on the surgical schedule and final pathology." "I mean realistically," Mark said, already annoyed, "how disruptive is this going to be?" Disruptive. That was the first word my husband gave to my cancer. I looked at him, waiting for his face to change, waiting for shame to hit him. It did not. Mark had the kind of handsome face that had been rewarded too many times for staying calm while other people fell apart. He was a senior finance director at a private equity firm in downtown Chicago, the kind of man who wore gray suits in 90-degree weather and called cruelty efficiency. He had built an entire personality around being the one who could handle pressure. Except my pressure, apparently. The walk from oncology to the parking garage felt longer than my whole childhood. The hospital lights were white and clean. People moved around us holding coffee, flowers, discharge papers, babies, balloons. Life kept going in every direction while mine dragged its feet behind me. Mark walked 3 steps ahead, keys already in his hand. When we reached level 4, he stopped beside his black Range Rover and stared at the concrete floor. "I can't do this, Nora." I thought he meant he was scared. For one stupid, desperate second, I thought he was about to break down. I thought he would say, "I'm sorry I acted weird in there. I'm terrified. I don't know how to watch you hurt, but I'm here." I thought he would finally become the man I had been pretending he was for 6 years. Instead, he clicked the unlock button. The car lights flashed. "I'm not built for sickness," he said. I heard a woman crying somewhere near the elevator. I remember that more clearly than I remember my own breath. "I haven't even started treatment," I whispered. "I know. Dr. Whitaker said it was early." "I know." She said I have a good chance. Mark pressed his lips together like I was making an emotional argument in a board meeting. "That's actually why I think we need to make a clean decision now," he said. "Before everything gets worse." "Everything?" He finally looked at me. "You're going to need to focus on yourself. I'm going to need to be honest about what I can and can't handle." My fingers tightened around the folder until the edge bent. "What are you saying?" "I think we should separate." The words did not sound dramatic when he said them. That was the cruelest part. He said them like he was canceling a dinner reservation. "Separate," I repeated. "Temporarily at first." "At first?" His jaw flexed. "Nora, please don't make this harder." Something in me went cold. Not strong yet. Just cold. "I have cancer, and you're asking me not to make this harder?" He looked away toward the open side of the garage where late afternoon light cut through the concrete. "I don't want to watch you deteriorate." Deteriorate. That word landed harder than carcinoma. I had heard women talk about discovering who their husbands really were during illness. I had seen the articles. I had watched a podcast once where a nurse said men leave sick wives more often than anyone wants to admit. I remember thinking, not Mark. Mark could be arrogant. Mark could be dismissive. Mark could make me feel small in front of his colleagues when he joked that my nonprofit marketing work was adorable little brand stuff. But leave me? In a hospital garage? No. Not my husband. And yet there he was, standing 4 feet away from me, already halfway gone. We drove home in silence. Home was a 1920s brick house in Oak Park with ivy crawling along the south wall, original wood floors, and a sunroom that caught morning light like it had been built specifically for second chances. Mark called it our house whenever he hosted people from work. He loved giving tours. He loved saying, "We got lucky before the market went crazy," as if he had been there at the closing table before our marriage, as if he had not moved in 8 months after I bought it with money my great-aunt Eleanor left me. Aunt Eleanor had worked 42 years as an executive assistant to the founder of a manufacturing company outside Milwaukee. She wore navy dresses, drove a 1998 Buick until the engine died, and once told me, "Never confuse a man's confidence for competence." I loved that house because it was mine before I became anybody's wife. Mark loved it because people assumed it was his. That night, he slept in the guest room. I sat on the edge of our bed with my folder open in my lap, staring at words I did not understand and futures I did not want. At 2:17 a.m., I went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. I lifted my shirt and touched the place where the tumor sat under my skin, invisible and violent. I was 39. I had laugh lines around my eyes. A small scar on my chin from falling off a bike when I was 11. A wedding ring that suddenly looked like costume jewelry. At 6:03 a.m., I woke to the sound of packing tape. For 1 second, half asleep, I thought maybe Mark was boxing files from the basement. Maybe handling practical things because that was how he showed fear. Then I heard drawers slamming. I put on my robe and went downstairs. Mark was in the dining room packing his watches, golf trophies, cufflinks, and the expensive leadership books he had never managed to learn from. 2 suitcases stood by the front door. His laptop bag was already zipped. On the table, next to his keys, was a folder from a real estate agency. I stared at it until he noticed. "You move fast," I said. He did not look embarrassed. "I'm going to stay with Ryan for a while." "Your college roommate?" "Yes. The one who cheated on both his wives?" Mark sighed. "I'm not doing this." "No. You're packing before breakfast because your wife got a diagnosis yesterday." He threw a folded sweater into the suitcase. "I called a divorce attorney. Just for guidance. I also reached out to a realtor." The floor seemed to tilt. "A realtor? We need to be realistic." "About what?" "The house." I laughed once. It sounded sharp and ugly. "My house?" "Our marital home," he corrected, like the phrase gave him ownership. "No, Nora, you're about to have medical bills, time off work, God knows what else. You can't maintain this place alone." I looked around at the crown molding I had paid to restore. The dining table I bought at an estate sale, the framed photograph of Aunt Eleanor on the mantel. Mark had walked into my life and slowly rearranged the language until mine became ours and ours became his. "I am not selling my house." His expression hardened. "Don't be stubborn because you're scared." That almost broke me. Not because it was true, but because he knew I was scared and decided to use it as a handle. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up. "Tessa." He saw me see it. For the first time since the hospital, Mark looked genuinely uncomfortable. My concern had not shaken him. The name on his phone did. "Who is Tessa?" "No one." "You don't smile like that for no one." His face closed. "This is not the time." I stepped closer. "Who is she?" "Nora." "Who is she?" The silence answered before he did. He rubbed both hands over his face and turned toward the window. "She works with one of her portfolio companies." "How long?" He said nothing. "How long, Mark?" 3 months. I felt a strange, clean crack open inside me. Not the messy devastation I expected, something more precise. "Did you sleep with her before or after you decided I was too disruptive?" His mouth twisted. "That's unfair." "No. Unfair is learning your husband has a mistress before your surgical consult." It wasn't like that. It never is, apparently. He zipped the suitcase too hard and broke the pull tab. That was when the doorbell rang. Mark froze. I looked through the front window and saw a woman in a camel coat holding a leather binder. She smiled politely at the porch camera. "The realtor." Mark moved toward the door. I got there first. When I opened it, the woman brightened with professional cheer. "Good morning. I'm Lydia Crane with North Shore Premier Realty. I have a 7 a.m. walkthrough scheduled with Mr. Dalton." "Good morning," I said. "There's been a mistake." Behind me, Mark's voice cut through the hall. "Nora, don't." I looked straight at Lydia. "This house is not for sale." Her smile faltered. "Oh. I'm sorry. I was told, you were told wrong." Mark stepped beside me, too close, trying to use his height. "This is a private family matter." I did not move. "No, it's a property matter. And the property is mine." Lydia's eyes flicked between us. I kept my voice steady. "My name is Nora Bennett. I am the sole owner on the deed. My husband had no authority to schedule a listing appointment." The word husband tasted different now. Like something expired. Lydia backed up a step. "I apologize. I'll remove the appointment from my system." "Thank you." I closed the door before Mark could speak. For a moment, the entire house went silent. Then he turned on me. "What the hell was that?" "The truth. You embarrassed me. You invited a stranger to praise my home 16 hours after I got diagnosed with cancer." "I was trying to help." "No, you were trying to cash out." His eyes narrowed. "With what money did you buy this house?" I almost smiled. Not because anything was funny, but because he had finally asked the question he should have asked before treating me like he a dependent. With money that never belonged to you. His face changed. A small, greedy calculation moved behind his anger. Before he could ask more, my phone rang. Rachel. My older sister never called before 7 unless someone was dead, arrested, or lying. I answered. I'm outside, she said. And Claire's with me. I closed my eyes. Did Mom call you? No. Your voice message did. The one where you tried to sound fine and sounded like a hostage. The doorbell rang again. When I opened it, my sisters came in like a weather event. Rachel, 44, was a family law attorney with a bob sharp enough to file motions by itself. Claire, 42, was a breast surgeon in Madison who had driven 2 hours in yesterday's clothes because I had texted her the word cancer and then stopped answering. Rachel looked at the suitcases. Claire looked at my face. Then both of them looked at Mark. I had never seen a man lose confidence so quickly. Packing already? Claire said. Her voice was quiet, which meant dangerous. Mark grabbed his keys. I'm not staying here to be attacked. Rachel stepped into his path. No one attacked you. But I can arrange a very educational conversation about marital abandonment, unauthorized real estate activity, and coercive financial behavior if you want to make my morning interesting. Mark looked at me. You're really bringing lawyers into this? She didn't bring a lawyer, Rachel said. She brought her sister. Unfortunately for you, I'm both. Claire walked to me and took the folder from my hands with the gentleness Mark had refused to offer. She opened it, scanned the first page, and her jaw tightened. Early stage, she said softly. We're going to get you through this. Those were the first words anyone had said to me that felt like a floor beneath my feet. Mark scoffed, great. Now everyone's dramatic. Claire looked up. She has cancer. And I said I needed space. No, I said. You said you didn't want to watch me deteriorate. Rachel inhaled through her nose. Mark's face flushed. I was upset. You were honest, I said. He took his suitcase and walked to the door. You're going to regret making an enemy out of me. Rachel laughed once. Men like you always think leaving is power. Mark glared at her. She tilted her head. But sometimes it's just evidence. He left with 2 suitcases, a broken zipper, and the last version of me that still wanted him to turn around. He did not. After the door closed, I stood in the hallway shaking so badly Claire had toe-guided me to the couch. I expected to cry. Instead, I laughed. It came out strange, almost hysterical. Rachel sat beside me and put an arm around my shoulders while Claire got water from the kitchen. I have cancer, I said. My husband has a girlfriend. He tried to sell me house. And it's not even 8 a.m. Rachel nodded. I've had Messier Tuesdays. That made me laugh harder until it turned into crying. For the next hour, my sisters took over without making me feel weak. Claire called a colleague at Northwestern. Rachel opened her laptop and asked where I kept financial documents. I pointed toward the study. In the floor safe, I said. Rachel paused. You have a floor safe? Aunt Eleanor insisted. Claire smiled from the kitchen. Of course she did. The safe was hidden under a loose panel beneath the Persian rug in my study. Mark had never noticed it. He barely came into that room unless he needed printer paper. Inside were folders Aunt Eleanor had labeled in her old careful handwriting. Deed, trust, investments. Insurance. Emergency contacts. Medical directive. Letters. Rachel spread the documents across the dining table. As she read, her expression shifted from anger to focus to something like awe. Nora, she said slowly. What? How much did Eleanor leave you? I shrugged. Enough for the house, some investments. I never really touched most of it. Rachel turned her laptop so I could see the spreadsheet she had made. The numbers did not feel real. Between the brokerage accounts, the trust distributions, the house equity, and the municipal bonds, you're sitting on just under $4.2 million. Claire nearly dropped her mug. What? I stared at Rachel. No. That can't be right. It is. But I work. I pay bills. I budget. Yes, because you're Eleanor's niece and she apparently raised you like the Great Depression might come back personally. Aunt Eleanor's face smiled from the mantel, half amused, half smug. Mark had spent years correcting me in public. He had told friends I was creative but not numbers-oriented. He had rolled his eyes when I chose store-brand cereal and teased me for using coupons. He had once said, at a dinner party, Nora would give away half her paycheck if I didn't keep us grounded. All that time, he had been the one living inside a fantasy. My phone buzzed. A message from Mark. We need to talk. This is not over. Rachel read it over my shoulder. Then another message came. You don't get to freeze me out of what I built. I looked around me house. The stained glass in the stairwell. The shelves I had painted myself. The kitchen tile Aunt Eleanor helped me choose before she died. My fear did not disappear. Misdiagnosis did not vanish. My heart was not suddenly healed. But something inside me stopped begging. I typed 3 words. Yes, it is. Then I blocked him. Rachel shut my laptop with a soft click. Now, she said, we protect you. Claire sat beside me and squeezed my hand. And then, she said, we save your life. For the first time since Dr. Whitaker said cancer, I believed both things might be possible. But that night, after my sisters fell asleep upstairs and the house settled into old wooden creaks, I woke to headlights sweeping across my bedroom wall. A car idled across the street. Black Range Rover. Mark had come back. And he was not alone. I stood behind my bedroom curtain without turning on the light. Across the street, Mark sat in the driver's seat of the Range Rover, one hand on the wheel, his face lit blue by his phone. A woman sat beside him. Even from the second floor, I could see her profile when she leaned forward to look at my house. Tessa. She was younger than me by at least 8 years, maybe 10. Long dark hair, expensive coat, the kind of delicate face that looked fragile until you noticed the calculation in the eyes. She took a picture of my porch. That made my stomach turn. I backed away from the window and went down the hall to Rachel's room. She woke on the first knock. What happened? He's outside. Rachel was out of bed before I finished the sentence. Claire appeared from the guest room in sweatpants, hair wild, instantly alert. We watched from the dark living room as Mark got out of the car. He did not come to the door, instead, he walked to the side gate, the one that led to the backyard. Rachel whispered, does he have a key? To the front door, I said. Not the new garden lock. We heard the metal gate rattle. Once. Twice. Then harder. Claire's voice was flat. I'm calling the police. No, Rachel said. Wait. Rachel. He's not inside. Let him create a record. Mark rattled the gate again, then cursed loudly enough that the porch camera picked it up. My phone buzzed with a motion alert. The clip showed him looking straight into the camera and saying, Nora, open the damn door. Tessa stepped out of the car. Mark, she said, this is insane. Her voice carried. He turned on her. Stay out of it. That was the first moment I realized she might not know what kind of story she was in. Mark came to the front porch and pounded on the door. Nora. I know you're in there. Rachel took my phone, saved the camera clip, then opened a new recording. Mark pounded again. You can't lock me out of my own home. Rachel smiled in the dark. Perfect, she whispered. The police arrived 9 minutes later. Oak Park cops are used to domestic disputes in nice houses with good lawns. They knocked, asked questions, took statements, and told Mark he could not force entry into a house where he had voluntarily left and where his name was not on the deed. Mark tried to charm them. It did not work. He tried to say I was unstable from the diagnosis. That worked even less. Tessa stood near the curb hugging herself, looking younger by the minute. When the officers told Mark to leave, he pointed at the house and said, half of that is mine. She's hiding assets. Rachel stepped onto the porch in her robe and said, I truly hope you put that in writing. Mark saw her and went quiet. After the police car pulled away, Tessa stayed behind. Mark yelled something from the Range Rover, but she walked up me driveway anyway. Claire opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Tessa looked exhausted. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know he was coming here. He said just needed paperwork. I almost told her to leave. I wanted to hate her. It would have been easier if she had been cruel, smug, waving my marriage around like jewelry. Instead she looked like someone who had just realized she was sitting in a getaway car. What do you want? I asked. She swallowed. To tell you something. Rachel came to the door beside me. Tessa looked at her, then at me. Mark told me you were separated already. He said you had been manipulating him for months. He said you refused treatment unless he agreed to sell the house and pay for everything. Claire made a sound like she wanted to drag Mark back by his collar. Tessa continued quickly. He also told Meth House was his. That he bought it before you got married and put your name on things for tax reasons. I laughed softly. It hurt my chest. That sounds like Mark. Her eyes filled. He borrowed money from me. Rachel's attention sharpened. How much? $52,000. Even Claire went still. He said it was temporary, Tessa said. He said once the house sold and the divorce settlement cleared, he would pay me back double. I was stupid. I know. No, I said before I could stop myself. You were lied to. She looked at me then, really looked at me. I'm sorry about your diagnosis. That sentence from my husband's mistress had more tenderness than anything Mark had said in the hospital. Rachel asked, do you have proof of the loan? Tessa nodded. Texts. Bank transfers. Voice notes. Keep all of it, Rachel said. You may need it. Tessa hesitated. There's more. A cold thread pulled through me. What? He called your hospital yesterday. Claire straightened. He what? He was on speaker in the car. He pretended to be your emergency contact and asked if your cancer was actually serious. The nurse wouldn't tell him anything. Then he got mad and said he was your husband and needed to understand whether you were exaggerating. The room went quiet. I remembered him asking Dr. Whitaker about time. Disruption. Deterioration. He had not believed my fear. He had audited it. Claire's face turned pale with fury. I'll handle that. Tessa looked at me like she expected me to scream. I did not. Something worse happened. I became calm. Thank you for telling me. She nodded, wiped her cheek, and stepped back. At the sidewalk, she turned once. He said if you were really sick, you'd fold. He said women get scared and practical when they think they might die. Then she walked away. I closed the door. Rachel leaned against it and whispered, "Oh, I am going to enjoy discovery." The next 2 weeks were a blur of scans, consultations, signatures, and rage so clean it felt medicinal. Claire arranged a second opinion with Dr. Anika Shah, one of the best breast surgeons in Chicago. Dr. Shah did not sugarcoat anything, and I loved her for it. She showed me the imaging, explained the surgical options, and told me I was a strong candidate for lumpectomy with sentinel node biopsy. You are not your diagnosis, she said. You are a person with a diagnosis. We treat the cancer. We protect the person. I cried in the parking lot after that appointment, but not the way I cried after Mark left. This time, I cried because someone had put me back in the center of my own body. The surgery was scheduled for a Thursday. Mark found out somehow. I suspected he still had friends at the hospital foundation from a charity gala we had attended the year before. The night before surgery, flowers arrived, white lilies. I hate lilies. They smell like funeral homes. The card said, Nora, Ipanict. I love you. Let me come tomorrow. We need each other. Mark. Rachel threw the flowers in the trash outside so the smell would not stay in the house. At 5:30 the next morning, Claire drove me to Northwestern. Rachel rode in the back seat answering emails and muttering legal threats under her breath. I wore no makeup. My hair was in a braid. I had written Aunt Eleanor's initials on a piece of paper and tucked it into my wallet. Before they wheeled me back, I asked Claire, "Am I going to wake up?" Her face changed. Not because she was worried, but because she understood the question underneath. She took my hand. "Yes. And when you do, we'll be there." Rachel leaned over the railing, "And if you don't, I will haunt that man so thoroughly he'll need a priest and a CPA. I laughed hard enough that the nurse smiled. I woke up groggy, thirsty, and alive. Claire was there. Rachel was there. Mark was not. For 3 days, my world became small: ice packs, pain medication, pathology results, the soft sound of Claire moving around the kitchen, Rachel taking calls in the study. Then Dr. Shaw called. Clear margins. No lymph node involvement. No chemotherapy recommended. Radiation was still possible, but the worst door had not opened. I sat at the kitchen table with the phone in my hand while my sisters cried harder than I did. I was going to live. Mark must have heard the same thing through whatever dirty little grapevine he had tapped, because the next morning he changed tactics. The email started first. Subject, please read. I was scared, Nora. Subject, I made a mistake. You know I shut down under stress. Subject, 6 years should mean something. I never stopped loving you. Then came voicemails from blocked numbers. Then came a letter couriered to the house. I did not open it. Rachel did. He wants couples counseling, she said. Claire snorted. He wants an appraisal. Rachel kept reading. He says Tessa meant nothing. That's funny, I said. Apparently I meant even less. Mark's next move came 4 days later. Rachel called me into the dining room and placed legal filing on the table. He filed for temporary access to financial records. I looked at the papers. What does that mean? It means he's claiming you concealed marital assets. He says he contributed to the lifestyle that allowed you to preserve your separate property. He wants full discovery into your accounts, trusts, and investments. I felt old panic rise in my throat. Can he get anything? Rachel sat down across from me. Probably not, the house was bought before marriage. Eleanor's trust is separate property. You kept the accounts separate. He's reaching. Then why do it? To scare you. To make you spend money. To create leverage. Claire stood behind my chair and put both hands on misholders. Rachel's mouth curved. But he made a mistake. What mistake? He asked for transparency. The next morning, Rachel and I went to the bank where Aunt Eleanor had kept her trust documents. A vice president named Mr. Donnelly took us into a private room that smelled like coffee and old paper. I expected copies of documents we already had. Instead, he brought in a sealed envelope marked, "For Nora Bennett, upon major illness, divorce, or financial threat." I recognized Aunt Eleanor's handwriting and burst into tears before it was even opened. Inside was a letter. My dearest Nora, if you are reading this, someone or something has made you feel unsafe. I am sorry, I am not there to make tea and tell you most men are not worth ruining your skin over. Rachel laughed through her nose when I read that line aloud. The letter continued. There are things I did not explain while I was alive because I wanted you to build a life based on character, not inheritance. I worked for Harold Whitcomb for 42 years. He was a difficult man, but not an ungrateful one. I helped build Whitcomb Industrial from a family warehouse into a national supplier. I negotiated deals no one knew I negotiated. I corrected mistakes men took credit for. Harold knew. Before he died, he created a private trust in my honor, with you as the eventual beneficiary. I stopped reading. Rachel took the page gently and continued. This trust isn't charity. It is delayed compensation for a lifetime of invisible work. If you ever face illness or abandonment, use it without shame. Money cannot buy love, but it can buy doors, locks, lawyers, treatment, and time. Those are not small things. Mr. Donnelly slid a second folder across the table. The Whitcomb Legacy Trust. Current estimated value, $27.8 million. I stared at the number. My brain refused it. No, it whispered. Rachel read the summary twice. Then a third time. This is real. I thought of Aunt Eleanor in her modest ranch house eating toast over the sink so she would not dirty a plate. Aunt Eleanor clipping coupons. Aunt Eleanor telling me to keep my name on everything. Aunt Eleanor sitting quietly at family dinners while men interrupted her. All those years she had known exactly what she was worth. She had just chosen not to explain it to fools. When we got back to my house, Rachel prepared the response to Mark's discovery request. She included everything required. The house deed. The Eleanor Bennett Trust. The brokerage accounts. The Whitcomb Legacy Trust. All separate. All documented. All untouchable. Total value, roughly $32 million. I asked if we should hold back the Whitcomb Trust. Rachel looked offended. He wanted transparency. We're giving him a window clean enough to break his nose on. At 4:46 p.m., my phone rang from an unknown number. It knew before I answered. Mark did not say hello. $32 million, he said. I stood in Thesson room. Outside, the maple tree had started turning red at the edges. Hello to you too. You lied to me. No. I lived privately. We were married. Yes, and you spent 6 years assuming I was lucky to be chosen by you. His breathing changed. Nora, listen. This changes things. No, Mark. It explains them. You don't understand that I made decisions based on incomplete information. I almost laughed. You left your wifey in a hospital parking garage because you thought she was sick and financially vulnerable. Now you've learned I'm neither vulnerable nor broke, and suddenly you want to revisit your values. You're twisting this. Am I? I was scared. You were calculating. I loved you. No. You loved being above me. Silence. Then his voice lowered. We can fix this, withdraw the filing. Let me come home. We'll tell people it was stress. I'll sign whatever you want. I looked at my reflection in the window. Shorter hair. Pale face. Surgical bandage hidden beneath a soft shirt. Tired eyes, but clearer than before. You already signed what I needed. What? Your character reference. I hung up. That evening, Rachel received a call from Mark's attorney requesting a settlement meeting. Rachel put him on speaker. The attorney's voice was careful. My client wishes to resolve this amicably. Rachel leaned back in her chair. Your client tried to break into my sister's house, misrepresented ownership to a realtor, pursued discovery into protected separate assets, and abandoned her during cancer treatment. Amicable left the building with his suitcase. The attorney cleared his throat. He may be willing to waive claims in exchange for a modest support arrangement. I looked at Rachel. She muted the phone and grinned. How modest do you think? Say no. Rachel unmuted. My client is not paying Mr. Dalton to stop attempting to steal what is not his. The attorney said, that is inflammatory. Rachel said, so is cancer. After she hung up, I expected triumph. Instead, grief hit me sideways. I went to the upstairs closet and opened the box where I had kept wedding things. The invitation. Adried flower from my bouquet. A photo strip from the rehearsal dinner. Mark kissing my cheek while I laughed with my whole mouth open. I sat on the floor and cried for the woman in that picture. Not because she was stupid. Because she was hopeful. Claire found me there. She sat beside me without speaking. Finally I said, how did I miss it? You didn't, she said. You saw what he showed you. Then when he got comfortable, he showed more. I feel humiliated. You were betrayed. That's different. I stayed. You loved him. I defended him. You were married to him. I let him make me feel small. Claire took the photo from my hand and looked at it, then get big. The divorce hearing was scheduled 7 weeks later. In those 7 weeks, Mark lost control of the story. Tessa filed a civil claim for the $52,000. Her attorney subpoenaed messages. One of them leaked through a friend of a friend, then spread through Mark's professional circle faster than any formal accusation could have. In it, Mark had written, "Nora is sick and scared. Once she realizes she can't handle the house, she'll agree. I just need to keep pressure on." There are sentences that show Aperson's soul like an X-ray. That was one of them. His firm placed him on leave. Then another twist landed. Rachel discovered Mark had used my name on a preliminary home equity inquiry 5 months earlier. He had not gotten a loan, but he had entered my information, estimated the house value, and listed himself as co-owner. Fraud was a strong word. Rachel liked strong words when they were accurate. She filed a motion to include the inquiry, the police report, the realtor testimony, and Tessa's loan evidence. Mark's attorney tried to negotiate again. This time, they did not ask for money. They asked for silence. I said no. Not because I wanted revenge in the loud, messy way people imagine revenge. I did not want to scream outside his office or ruin his life with a viral video. I wanted something cleaner. I wanted the truth placed in a room where he could not edit it. On the morning of the hearing, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror wearing a navy suit Rachel had picked out. My hair had been cut to my shoulders because after surgery I needed a change I could choose. Under my blouse was asmal scar and a body I was still learning how to trust. Claire knocked on the door. "You ready?" "No," she smiled. "Good. Ready is overrated." Rachel waited downstairs with coffee. At the courthouse, Mark sat with his attorney on one side of the room. He looked thinner, gray around the mouth, his confidence worn down to something twitchy. Tessa was not with him. Ryan was not with him. No one was with him. For half a second, I felt pity. Then he looked at me like I was a bank account that had learned to speak. The pity died. The judge entered. And Mark, for the first time since the hospital garage, had nowhere to run. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Movies make divorce hearings look grand, full of polished wood and dramatic silence. This room had buzzing fluorescent lights, a scratched table, a clock that ticked too loudly, and a judge who looked like she had heard every lie available to mankind before lunch. Judge Marlene Porter adjusted her glasses and looked down at the file. Bennett v. Dalton. My maiden name looked strange beside his. Strong, but strange. Rachel sat to my right. Claire sat behind me. I could feel her presence like a hand between my shoulder blades. Mark sat across the aisle with his attorney, Daniel Price, who looked less like a shark now and more like a man regretting a client. Judge Porter began with the basics. Date of marriage. No children. Residence. Separate property claims. Medical circumstances. When she said medical circumstances, Mark stared at the table. Rachel stood first. Your Honor, my client seeks dissolution of the marriage, confirmation of separate property, denial of spousal support to either party, and protection from further harassment regarding assets Mr. Dalton neither acquired nor contributed to. Judge Porter nodded. Mr. Price stood. My client does not dispute that certain assets predate the marriage, however, he maintains that he was misled as to the financial nature of the marital partnership and that Mrs. Bennett's concealment affected his decisions during the marriage. The judge lifted her eyes. Mrs. Bennett's concealment? Mr. Price hesitated. Her failure to disclose substantial wealth. Judge Porter turned a page. Did Mr. Dalton ask his wife whether she possessed separate inheritance or trust assets? Mr. Price glanced at Mark, not specifically, Your Honor. Did Mrs. Bennett use marital funds to acquire the Oak Park residence? No. Is Mr. Dalton listed on the deed? No. Did Mr. Dalton contribute to the purchase? No. Did he contribute to the Whitcomb Legacy Trust? No. To the Eleanor Bennett Trust? No. To the brokerage accounts inherited prior to marriage? No. The judge leaned back. Then help me understand what he is claiming. Mark shifted in his chair. I saw the pressure building in his face. Mark hated being summarized by facts he could not charm. Mr. Price said carefully, he stood. Your Honor, he believed my client was dependent. That isn't a legal theory. Judge Porter almost smiled. Mr. Price continued, there is also the matter of emotional distress. My client acted under extreme stress following Mrs. Bennett's diagnosis. Something inside me went still. Rachel's voice sharpened. Extreme stress caused him to schedule a realtor without ownership authority? Mr. Price said, he was attempting to assess options. Extreme stress caused him to attempt entry into her home at night after moving out? He was retrieving personal items. Rachel picked up the police report. While accompanied by the woman he had been seeing for 3 months. Mark's jaw clenched. Judge Porter looked at him. Mr. Dalton, you will remain composed. Rachel continued. Extreme stress caused him to tell that woman Mrs. Bennet was sick and scared and would fold under pressure. Mr. Price objected. Judge Porter allowed the message. Rachel read it aloud. Nora is sick and scared. Once she realizes she can't handle the house, she'll agree. I just need to keep pressuring. Hearing those words in Rachel's voice was different from seeing them on paper. They filled the room like smoke. Judge Porter looked at Mark over her glasses. Did you write that? Mark swallowed. I was venting. To your girlfriend? Rachel asked. Mr. Price objected again. Sustained, the judge said. But her face had already heard it. Rachel introduced the home equity inquiry. Mr. Price argued it had never become a loan. Rachel agreed. That is precisely why we are addressing it now, Your Honor. Mr. Dalton attempted to represent himself as co-owner of a property that did not belong to him, months before Mrs. Bennet's diagnosis and before any alleged panic. The room changed. That was the twist Mark had not prepared for. He turned toward his attorney, whispering too loudly. You said that wouldn't come in. Judge Porter's pen stopped. Mr. Price went pale. Rachel looked almost serene. The judge asked, Mr. Dalton, did you submit information to a lender identifying yourself as co-owner of the Oak Park residence? Mark's face reddened. It was just exploratory. Yes or no? Yes, but, and was your wife aware? He said nothing. The judge repeated, was your wife aware? No, I closed my eyes. For months I had thought the betrayal began in the parking garage, then with Tessa. Then with the realtor. But this had started before cancer. Before fear. Before excuses. He had been looking for a way into my house before he knew he was sick. Cancer had not created his cruelty. It had simply given it a schedule. Judge Porter took notes. Mr. Price requested a recess. Denied. Then Mark did what men like Mark often do when careful lies fail. He tried emotional truth, not realizing the truth made him worse. He stood before his attorney could stop him. Your Honor, I made mistakes, he said. But I was blindsided. My wife let me believe we were building a life together while hiding millions of dollars. I was expected to stay through cancer, through surgeries, through God knows what else, without even knowing she had the resources to make it easier. The room went silent. I felt Rachel stiffen beside him. Judge Porter's face hardened. Mark kept going. I'm not a nurse. I'm not some saint. I panicked. I thought I was looking at years of hospitals and bills and watching her fall apart. And yes, if I had known she had $32 million, I would have handled things differently. There it was. The second twist, spoken by the villain himself. Not, I would have loved her better. Not, I would have been less afraid. If I had known she had $32 million. Even his regret had a price tag. Judge Porter stared at him for so long that Mark finally sat down. She said quietly, thank you for clarifying your motivations. Mr. Price looked like he wanted the floor to pen. Rachel placed one hand over mine under the table. I did not cry. That surprised me. I had cried in the hospital bathroom, in my closet, over old photos, into Claire's holder, in the shower where no one could hear. But sitting across from the man who left me when I thought I might die, I felt no urge to beg the universe for a different ending. This was the ending. Just not his. Judge Porter issued her ruling in measured, devastating pieces. The Oak Park home was confirmed as my separate property. The Eleanor Bennett Trust was separate. The Whitcomb Legacy Trust was separate. The brokerage accounts were separate. No spousal support would be awarded to either party. Mark's request for broader discovery was denied. His conduct regarding the realtor, attempted entry, and home equity inquiry would be noted in the record. Then the judge looked directly at him. Marriage does not convert another person's inheritance into your entitlement. Illness does not make abandonment strategic. And fear does not explain why a spouse would attempt to pressure a medically vulnerable partner into surrendering property. Mark's face had gone gray. Judge Porter signed the order. My marriage ended with the scratch of a pen. Outside the courtroom, Mark followed us into the hallway. Nora. Rachel stepped half in front of me. I touched her arm. It's okay. Mark looked smaller under courthouse lighting. His suit was still expensive, but it no longer looked like armor. It looked like a costume he had outgrown. I lost my job, he said. I said nothing. Tessa's suing me. Still nothing. Ryan won't let me stay much longer. My accounts are tied up. The firm is investigating the loan inquiry. That sounds disruptive, I said. His mouth tightened. I deserved that. You deserved worse. Hell looked at me with wet eyes. I had waited years to see him cry. Now that it was happening, I felt nothing but distance. We can start over, he said. Clean slate. I'll sign a postnup. I'll go to therapy. I'll tell everyone I panicked. I'll take care of you. I almost laughed. Mark, I had cancer. You tried to take care of the house. flinched. I was scared. So was I. I made one terrible mistake. No. You made 100 small selfish choices, and one day they lined up where everyone could see them. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. Don't. His voice cracked. Are you really going to leave me with nothing? I looked at him for a long time. Then I said, no. You left with exactly what you brought into my life. Yourself. Claire made a small sound behind me, half laugh, half sob. Mark's face twisted. You're cold. No, I said. I'm clear. Rachel opened the courthouse door. Sunlight spilled across the floor. He walked out first. For months after the divorce, healing did not look cinematic. It looked like radiation appointments at 7:15 a.m. It looked like Aquaphor on tender skin. It looked like sleeping 10 hours and still waking tired. It looked like checking the mailbox and feeling my stomach drop at every official envelope. It looked like learning toad alone at the kitchen island without hearing Mark's voice criticizing the way I held my fork when he was in a mood. But it also looked like mine. My mornings became quiet in a way I had not known I needed. I made coffee and drank it in the sunroom. I returned to work part-time because I loved building campaigns for organizations that actually helped people. I took slow walks under the maple trees. I let Claire drag me to follow-up appointments. I let Rachel organize my legal documents until my study looked like a woman-owned fortress. And then, one rainy afternoon in November, I opened Aunt Eleanor's letter again. Money cannot buy love, but it can buy doors, locks, lawyers, treatment, and time. I kept returning to that sentence. I had doors. I had locks. I had lawyers. I had treatment. I had time. Other women did not. The idea started small, a fund to help women with cancer cover legal consultations if their partners abandoned them or pressured them financially. Rachel thought I was being too modest. Claire said medical social workers needed emergency housing resources all the time. Dr. Shaw connected me with a patient navigator who cried when I described it. By spring, the Eleanor House Fund had an office in a renovated storefront not far from the hospital where my life had cracked open. We offered emergency grants, legal referrals, transportation to treatment, temporary rent support, therapy vouchers, and financial safety planning for women whose illness had revealed the person sleeping beside them. I did not put my face on the website. I did not need applause. But on opening day, Rachel hung a framed photo of Aunt Eleanor behind my desk. In it, she was standing in front of a lake wearing sunglasses, one hand on her hip, looking like she knew every secret and approved of very few people. Claire brought yellow tulips. I hate lilies, she said. I know. Our first client arrived 2 days later. Her name was Denise. She was 51, with stage 2 breast cancer and a husband who had emptied their joint account after her mastectomy because, according to him, he couldn't live in a house full of sadness. She sat across from me clutching a grocery bag full of medical bills and said, I don't know who I am if he can throw me away like this. I reached across the desk and took her hand. You are not what a coward does when he gets scared. She cried then. Not pretty tears. Real ones. The kind that shake loose something poisoned. I cried too. That was the moment I understood revenge differently. Revenge was not Mark losing his job, although he did. It was not Tessa winning her claim, although she did. It was not the professional gossip that followed him from firm to firm, making him radioactive in the polished circles where reputation mattered more than truth until truth became documented. It was not even keeping my house, my trusts, my name. The real revenge was turning the worst sentence he ever said to me into a door for someone else. I don't want to watch you deteriorate. Fine. Then he did not get to watch me become more alive than I had ever been. 6 months after surgery, Dr. Shaw told me my scans were clean. Clean. The word felt too small for what it gave me. He walked out of the hospital through the same parking garage where Mark had ended our marriage. Level 4. Same concrete pillars. Same cold echo. Different woman. Rachel and Claire were waiting beside Claire's car with coffee and donuts because my sisters believe every medical milestone should be treated like a tailgate. Claire hugged me first. Rachel said, I would like the record to show I remained calm. You threatened a vending machine because it ate your dollar, Claire said. It was theft. We laughed until I cried. Then I looked across the garage at the place where Mark had stood months before, keys in hand, telling me he was not built for sickness. For a while, I had believed that sentence meant I was too heavy to love. Now I understood it meant he was too weak to stand. That night, I went home alone. Not lonely. Alone. There is a difference no one teaches you until you survive the wrong marriage. The house was warm when I walked in. The sunroom smelled like cedar and rain, the maple outside had dropped leaves across the yard in a gold mess Mark would have complained about. I left them there. I made tea in Aunt Eleanor's old kettle and carried it to the living room. On the mantel were 3 photographs, Aunt Alina at the lake, Rachel and Claire laughing at my clean-skin dinner, and one of me taken 2 weeks after surgery. No makeup. Tired eyes. Soft scarf. A small smile that had cost me everything and given me back more. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. For some reason, I answered. At first there was only breathing. Then Mark said, "I heard about your foundation." I closed my eyes. Of course he had. "It's a fund," I said. "You named it after her." "Yes." He was quiet. "I saw an article." I said nothing. They made me sound like a monster. "No, Mark. They didn't name you. They didn't have to." That was true. His story had followed him because truth does not always need a full address. Sometimes it only needs a shape. He cleared his throat. "I'm in Indianapolis now. Smaller firm. Less pay." "Okay." Tessa got her money. "Good. I'm trying to be better." I looked at Aunt Eleanor's photo. "I hope you are." His voice softened. "Do you ever miss me?" There it was. The old hook. The question designed to make me responsible for comforting him. I thought carefully. "I miss who I was before I knew you could do what you did." He inhaled sharply. "That's cruel." "No. It's honest." Another silence. Then he said, "If you had been poor, would you still have left me?" I almost smiled. Even after everything, he still thought the money was the center of the story. "Mark, you left me because you thought I was poor." He had no answer for that. I continued. "The money protected me. It did not save me. My sisters helped save him. My doctors helped save me. Aunt Eleanor helped save me. But mostly, I saved the part of myself that still wanted to live after you treated my life like an inconvenience." His breathing changed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he did not. The beautiful thing was that it no longer mattered. "I know," I said. "Can we ever talk again?" "No, Nora, I hope you become someone better. But you will not practice on me." I hung up. Then I blocked the number. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. The house settled around me, old and steady mine. A week later, Denise came by the office after her last radiation treatment. She wore a pink scarf and carried cupcakes from a grocery store bakery. She had found an apartment. Rachel had connected her with an attorney. Claire's hospital network had helped get her transportation covered. She was still scared. Still tired, still facing a future she had not chosen. But when she hugged me, she stood taller than before. "You made me feel like I wasn't disposable," she said. After she left, I sat alone in the office and cried. Not because I was sad. Because I finally understood Aunt Eleanor's inheritance. It was not the house. It was not the trusts. It was not the millions Mark had wanted once he knew they existed. It was the knowledge that a woman's life does not become less valuable because someone fails to recognize it. Mark believed my diagnosis was the end of my usefulness. He believed leaving first made him powerful. He believed fear gave him permission to be selfish and money gave him permission to return. He was wrong every time. Cancer took tissue from my body, certainty from my days, and innocence from my marriage. But it also took the blindfold off. It showed me who would sit beside my hospital bed and who would calculate resale value. It showed me which hands reached for mine and which hands reached for keys. It showed me that love without loyalty is just performance waiting for bad lighting. I still have scars. One under my blouse. One in my memory. One in the place where trust used to be easy. But scars are not proof that you are ruined. They are proof that something tried to open you and failed to empty you. Every time I walk into Eleanor House and see a woman lift her head after being called a burden, I think about that hospital parking garage. I think about the folder in my hand, the concrete under my feet, the man I loved telling me he could not watch me deteriorate. And I wish I could go back for 10 seconds. Not to beg him to stay. Not to warn myself. Not even to tell him about the house, the trust, the judge, the foundation, the life waiting on the other side of his betrayal. I would only take that terrified woman's hand and tell her the truth. He is not leaving because you are broken. He is leaving because he cannot stand beside a woman who is about to discover she was never small.